the Valley Current.
I got to send you one of these light rings that I have.
Light rings, yeah.
Yeah, light rings. So how you been, man?
I've been real good.
Gosh, you're gonna make it. You're gonna make it to 60 years in practice, aren't you?
I'm working on just hanging in there.
I have to say you're an inspiration, Ron. And what I like about you is you engage in the real experimentation that I often engage in, and people think I'm nuts. And more people are starting to realize that we are entering a new phase here where the tools are getting very, very powerful. And to some degree, how you orchestrate them will determine just how useful you can be in a particular matter. And how fast you can be as well. I think clients are expecting things faster and faster. It seems like every year they expect things to go faster and faster and be less and less expensive, right? In general.
Yeah, absolutely. Those expectations keep increasing.
No, the expectations are over the top. I mean, I think you remember when we first started, and you're a little bit older than I am, I think. I'm pretty sure. Certainly been a member of the bar longer because I went to graduate school and did a little detour. But net, we used to basically say a week to respond to a letter was okay. And then when fax machines came in, it was like, well, maybe it should be like 3 days. Or 4. That's what I remember. I don't know what you remember, but I didn't remember this instantaneous turnaround at all.
Yeah, I think it was a better time, actually, in that respect. It's always, I get pangs every time I'm, trying to respond to something quickly. These tools do make it easier to do that, for sure.
Well, the tools type a lot faster than anyone else could ever type. To begin with. I mean, forget about whether or not they're typing anything that makes sense, but they definitely know how to type fast, right?
So I've been working intensely with AI lately. It just kind of blossomed because I did a big project on it.
Right.
So using AI, I did a big project, and as a result of doing that project, I learned a lot about what it can do and what it can't do. I started a bunch of other projects, but basically it's a great tool to help you to refine a draft, like I had a 100-page document.
Right.
And it started off from like a complete mishmash. And, over the course of a week, just really, really tightened it down. It was a draft patent application.
Okay, which is more structured than the average document usually because it has a special format generally, right?
The format is negligible, actually. I mean, there's really not that much format to a patent document, believe it or not. The only thing it really has a format is the claims.
Right.
But it's a technical paper, is what it is.
Right.
It's fundamentally it's a technical paper. It's disclosing, it's teaching something, and it's trying to develop that in a way that no matter what twists and turns it takes in the prosecution of the patent, you still have stuff there that if you have to amend a claim, you still have a foundation for it. You have to make sure you have a foundation for whatever direction it's going to go.
Right.
The other thing is, it's extremely helpful when you have a 100-page document to be able to have something just look at it and literally in a few seconds tell you whether it's coherent, whether it's saying the same thing on page 5 that it's saying on page 95. Developing a coherent page. Is there anything that's out of whack here
any inconsistency at all. It'll pick up the inconsistencies. That's for sure, right?
It'll pick up so what it's really good at. I'll tell you a little saga here. What it's really good at is language. It's a large language model. It's really good at language. It's really good at, if you give it two pieces of language and you say compare and contrast these, it'll do it. It'll do a great job with this.
Right.
Come back and ask it to remember something you discussed half an hour ago. It's not so good. It forgets.
Right.
It forgets.
Right.
And sometimes it'll fake you. It'll try to fake you out. It'll try to make it knows things.
You keep everything in one folder. Like, let's say you're doing a patent application. Do you keep it all in one context window or one folder? Like Gemini has a tool called Notebook LM on Google that allows you to folderize things, and then all that context can be stored. And the view is that gives it more available text to work with, so that you're not scattershotting it. But I don't know if you're doing that.
Copilot does that too. On Copilot using
Microsoft.
Using GPT-5, right?
Right.
Does that too. They have notebooks and so on and so forth. But it says that it has the context, but unless you really draw its attention to something, it's not really paying that much attention to the larger.
Do you do tricks? Like, I've heard tricks that say, well, put in all caps the particular term that you're really concerned about. So if you have a term that you think really should be the focus, put it in all caps. So there might be some claim language where, a Fresnel lens or something is somehow in this. Put Fresnel lens in all caps.
Well, I'll just put in brackets to say, hey, AI, pay attention to this.
Right.
See that.
Right.
It'll see that.
It's a whole new language in a way for us. Remember in the days when Lexus first came out, right after the fax machines, Lexus, that big machine, which was, everyone just shared. You had to learn kind of the /this/that codes that were a little bit like CPM was for the operating system years ago, and the way Unix is today.
Yeah, it's still very relevant. So I tell you, like, for instance, on this patent application,
right?
I had really well developed text and not very well developed figures,
right?
And it kept offering to do the figures for me.
Yeah. Okay.
So I said, okay, do some figures, and it did them.
Right.
They were just terrible.
Okay.
And one of the reasons it was terrible was, first of all, it would forget details and not put them in the figures.
Ouch.
And secondly, it didn't have any idea of the z-axis of like where it would have things that overlapped and interfere with each other. You couldn't see it, you couldn't read it,
right?
Because put the boxes on top of each other, the labels on top of the lines, and it made a complete mess of the figures. So, and it's just not good at that. And what I figured out is I actually figured out a routine to make this a lot better.
Okay.
Which is, since what it's really good at is language comparison, I said to it, go through this thing and tell me what you think the most helpful figures would be to explain all this 100-page stuff.
Okay.
And for each one of those figures, give me a verbal description of a detailed verbal description of what ought to go in that picture. And we didn't. Okay. I didn't say do all 15 of them at once. It's figure one.
Right.
And figure two. And what we developed out of that was a separate document, which was just the description of the figures, textual description of the figures.
Right. You were doing essentially making you do the work of generating a better prompt for the figures.
Well, yeah, we generated the prose for each one of those things.
Right.
And then I said, I want you to take each one. Let's take figure one. I want you to convert that into a data definition language that could be used to drive a translator for a rendering engine.
Oh, okay. So you're at the level of like SQL commands by analogy, right?
Yeah. So I said, do the DDL, and then let's see what happens. And
yeah. What'd you find?
Well, then I said, I found what it did, and I looked, and I tried to put it through one of its engines, and it was okay. But what I realized was I looked at it, and it was like missing some detail.
Yeah.
I said, well, here's what I want you to do. I want you to make a DDL generator that is reversible. So you're going to take the language and put the DDL on it and generate DDL. Then you're going to go backwards. You're going to take the DDL and generate some language. Now what I want you to do is you got these two textual things. I want you to tell me if there's any semantic difference whatsoever between these two things.
Okay.
So, brilliant job at that. And say, I missed something. And you missed something, didn't you? You said, yeah. He said, yeah, I missed something. And I said, well, fix the DDL generation so it doesn't miss it. And I'm doing it again. And we get it to where the DDL gets better, right? And then
so you're iterating over and over again in the improvement of its output.
But we're going to get to do it.
Right.
And then I take it, and the reason it can do it is because it can compare these two texts very well.
Right.
And we have good DDL. Now I say, okay, now generate something. Now translate this into a script for GraphViz. And it did that. And I put that into GraphViz, and it was a much better figure than it had ever been able to generate.
Do you remember there used to be people that actually did those graphics for you at a charge? Do you remember the graphic artists that sold services to do that?
They're still out there. I don't think they're in serious trouble yet.
But it's risky for them to imagine that this stuff isn't going to get better and better over time, right?
Yeah. Well, I think my technique is actually pretty good, but yeah. So there's a lot of things it can do, and a lot of things it can't do, or it can't do very well, and you have to figure out what it is that it really does well and try to harness that, and get it to work in those terms. And I had another thing, which was I wanted to develop a system. I've been wanting to do this for ages. A system that writes timesheets for me.
Okay.
I don't like writing timesheets.
Right. Right. No one does.
No one does.
There are people that become general counsel, and the first thing they say is, "I don't have to do timesheets anymore." They join a corporation as general counsel. They point that out.
Yeah, I'm working on Copilot,
right,
which is a Microsoft product, right?
Right.
And it's part of Microsoft's 365. So I feel like I'm in Microsoft 365 all day. I'm in Outlook. I'm in Word. I'm the calendar, the email, the Copilot. I'm working in your products all day. You should be able to track what I'm doing and generate some kind of rich log, and from that, spit out a timesheet for me, or at least a draft timesheet. And it's great idea. That's wonderful. Let's do it. And it comes up. This is in the Microsoft world. It comes up with all these solutions, like creating these serverless Lambda servers on Azure, and use Microsoft Graph to collect all these.
They think you're running a 500 lawyer law firm or something. Yeah.
So and that's fine. But the problem with it is that you can't do any of that stuff without involving IT.
Yeah. Right.
As a user, you don't have permissions to do any of that.
Right.
It's like you're going to get IT involved, and they're going to say, "What are you doing this for?" And it's like, forget about it, right? It's
right.
I need this like a hole in the head, right? And I said, is there any, if I'm in the Microsoft world, is there any alternative? Can I just mine the data with some kind of process and then feed it into some other system? And we went through all these iterations, and there's really no clean way to do it that saves you any more work than just writing your friggin' timesheets, right? So I said,
Well,
wait,
I wonder. I mean, I'm just thinking for the first time because I've not thought of this at all. And it sounds like something that should be doable without a big IT project. Are you using Copilot for everything we've just discussed, or are you using other stuff?
mostly Copilot for the serious
Mostly Copilot?
for the serious
Okay.
stuff. If I have questions about my car, like why my diesel engine is puts out white smoke when it starts, I might
Yeah.
use the other things, and they're really good at it. But here, so you know what I said? I said, look, forget all of this, right? I'm going to go back to like when I was an undergraduate. I was taught. I was in the sciences, right? I was taught.
At MIT, right?
Yeah, I was taught to use a laboratory notebook.
Right.
Everything
Yeah.
you have this bound notebook with numbered pages. I was taught. So and I was doing this at Fenwick. I always had a little, spiral bound book that I wrote notes in. I had dozens of them because I kept filling them up. Every time I get on the phone, I'd write. So I kept this habit to this day. Only now what I do is I just have a stack of loose sheets of paper on a clipboard, and I take these notes. And at the end of the day, I scan them into Evernote.
Okay.
A wonderful handwriting translation engine, right?
Okay.
And
Okay.
I have all these notes. So I said, and I always do is I always start with the date and I write down the name of the client. And
Right.
sometimes I mention the matter. And I said to
Okay.
I said, what if I had notes like that and handed them to you? Do you think you could generate a timesheet? So it said, yeah, I think so. And so I told her, okay, let's say I'm going to define a client, John Jones, and a matter,
Right.
Jones v. Apple, right?
Right.
And,
Right.
and I gave it. I took some of my actual notes and changed the name so that I didn't really want to put my notes on there right now. And I gave it to it, and it was also very sloppy handwritten stuff that I would just done on the fly. I didn't select it for anything. I just took the transcript, which Evernote generates automatically, and put it in there.
Right.
It generated a beautiful summary for a timesheet with, in tabular form. I mean, it was, forget all this other crap. Just take a piece of paper and it just works.
In an Excel file or in a Word file or what? What did it do?
It was like Markdown or something.
Okay. So you're adding 0.3 and 0.5 and some time data in some column, or it does that too?
It estimated, and its estimate was pretty damn good.
Wow. Okay.
It estimated how much time it had the client in one column, the matter in another column, description, and the number of hours.
Right, but your time system is probably something like TimeSolve or one of the other ones that are in the cloud, right?
It's in TimeSolve, yeah.
In TimeSolve, right? So TimeSolve needs to get religion here and realize that there should be some easier way to get the data into TimeSolve, right?
It'd be easier. You just give your notes to your secretary. I mean, that's the way. That was the old thing, right? If you had a secretary that would do it,
right?
Your notes to the secretary would put the time in. This is the same thing.
Right. I remember when we used to do an actual time slip on kind of a triplicate piece of paper, and then you turn in the little piece of paper, kind of like a check. It was kind of like the size of a check.
Bill Fenwick's pads of time diaries.
Right. I mean, lawyers do fail to capture time. I mean, it's such a weird system that we have because there are quality moments that you could be swimming in a pool and you're on your own recreational time and you come up with some brilliant idea for how to solve what seemed like an intractable problem. And they tell you that's your recreational time. You can't bill for that. They'd say you're humble, you aren't behind your desk. But the reality is creativity can happen anywhere at any time. And particularly if you're thinking about a problem while you're in some place like a pool swimming, which I do a lot of swimming, so I get ideas all the time, and there's magic there. And the quality is it's not necessarily, you have to be behind a desk, you have to be manipulating a keyboard, that sort of thing. we have this old sort of system that is going to change dramatically, it seems to me, because it's not going to be about time anymore. It's going to probably be about creativity more than anything else. And clients are going to say, I don't expect you to type. Yeah, you can type a few things, but in terms of the actual text generation, that's got to be done by the machine. That's what a client would say. And then you get to manipulate and move things around. You might disagree with that, but the reality is it's heading in that direction because the machine types a lot faster than anyone that I know, including some really fast secretaries.
Yeah, I don't know. I like to cut and paste stuff, and I like the tactile feedback does something in my mind.
Right. There's definitely something to be said for that. But let me give you another example that's sort of along the lines of what you're discussing, which is, there's a lot of instances where you get little clues of some sort or another based upon what the opposing lawyer is saying and then what the opposing lawyer is not saying.
Right.
And I'm convinced that in the future, and maybe even the present, you'll be able to load the pattern of the way the opposing lawyer reveals or doesn't reveal what's actually going on. And that will be like a second or sixth sense that the machine has about your opposing lawyer. Oh, he didn't comment. You asked them a direct question about this. You may have actually forgotten that you asked them a direct question in an email or whatever, and it'll pick up if it has the data. And I'll give you something that I think none of the newspapers are reporting right now. I think Lisa Cook got screwed by an AI program that went through her entire corpus of everything she's ever filed in her entire lifetime. And it picked up that she had 2 residential loans at about the same time, like 2 weeks apart. And they nailed her. I mean, I don't know whether it's actually going to count because it seems like, Trump is the one that does this stuff all the time and gets convicted of felonies as a result, and it just bounces off him as the president of the United States. But without getting political, I think she got caught as a result of AI, not as a result of some person with a green eye shade saying, let me go through all of her stuff that she's ever published, that she's ever written, that she's ever submitted an application on. I think they loaded everything, and I think they're loading everything of every other Federal Reserve governor, every other Federal Reserve board member, everyone. Powell's probably got his entire history loaded into some AI tools. And I think that's part of what they were doing, calling it Doge, calling it DOGE.
Oh, Doge, I have not a shadow of doubt that that's exactly what they were doing.
And they were saying, well, it's for efficiency, but the truth is it was creating a set of arrows that could be fired at any time. And sooner or later, someone will reveal, I don't know who, there'll be some, disgruntled whistleblower or something that says, yeah, they gave me like 5,000 pages from all of her stuff. And they said, put AI to work on any little inconsistency. It's the point you're making, which is inconsistencies are sometimes missed by the human eye, but the language of the LLM can pick it up and can do a pretty good job, right?
Yeah, no, that was, whoever is the data meister over there, powerful dude.
I mean, it's a very powerful weapon if you think about it, the weaponizing of a tool like that, because it's like years ago there were CEOs that used to get caught buying a box of cigars on the way out of a business lunch, and all of a sudden some shareholder would say, hey, what's went on here is a $600 box of cigars you essentially stole from the company, charging the cigars to the business lunch. And of course, that sounds like a small transgression, but CEOs couldn't be fired for cause for stuff like that on the view that it doesn't fit within an honest character, right? I mean,
Well,
maybe it'd have to be a $6,000 box of cigars, but at some price point.
If it occurs during the term of their employment, yeah.
Right, right. Hey, let me give you one other thing that I've done that you'll get a kick out of, because I'll send this to you. So, in California, there's a statute that says if someone sends you an unsolicited item, like even an email, you essentially own the copy of that email. So you can do whatever you want with it. That's the statute. The statute is based on all of these sort of fraudsters that would send gifts and then say, don't you feel bad? You really should buy my service. And they said, if you send something to somebody by postal mail, by any form, basically you're giving an unconditional gift. That's in the California Civil Code. All right, so here's an example of something I did.
That's preempted by copyright law to the extent you're talking copyright, right?
Well, it's not in copyright as much as it is in the physical item, the electrons making their way onto a screen to be manipulated. Now, maybe copyright law would say that statute's preempted, but let's keep it simple for a second.
I think it's got some legs there, yeah.
Right. So here's the point. So I get this stuff all the time. I don't know why. I'm probably on some mailing list from people like Robert Kiyosaki. This guy wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think I bought his books years ago, and I'm on some mailing list. He's the guy that when he was a kid, he grew up, he had, a poor dad, and then his mom divorced. I think the way it went, the mom divorced the poor dad and married the rich dad, and the rich dad taught him all the things that his poor dad didn't teach him. So he wrote a book called, it's actually a bestseller, and he's still out there with newsletters, right? So what I just did ahead of our conversation, and I didn't have time to look at the results that Claude generated, I took a copy of what was sent to me as hey, you really should buy my newsletter because I'm going to reveal 10 secrets for how you can make money in real estate. And I just wrote a prompt that I'll probably keep in a separate file as something that I use in the future for other such unsolicited items that said, read all the breadcrumbs here. These are my words. The prompt is different. It's more detailed. Read all the breadcrumbs here and tell me, what are these secrets that he's saying I should pay for? Are you with me? It's like reverse engineering. It's like what's readily ascertainable. Let me tell you something. The thing is still working in the background. It probably will be done after this call is over. I'll send it to you and we can examine it together. But I'm convinced it's going to basically recreate everything that he's selling as his newsletter.
That's funny.
Is that funny? Because, now some of these high-end newsletters, they send you something that arguably is inconsistent with California law on this gift idea. They say, by opening this email, you hereby agree that you will not use the content in any AI system. Now, California law is saying you sent me an unsolicited email. I didn't sign any contract with you. That's a gift. In California, that's a gift.
Yeah.
So I should be able to use my copy whichever way I want to use it, short of making many, many copies that maybe become kind of an illegal distribution. Now, maybe their argument is, well, that's effectively what you're doing once you put it into an AI system.
I like to see what becomes of that prompt.
Yeah, I'm going to send you the link. I'm going to send you the link with the prompt. I'm going to send you the results. I did say do some deep thinking on this, do some deep research. And, ultimately, all of us will have a collection of these detailed instructions, kind of the way you created instructions dealing with the PPL. Is it a PPL file? The PDL file? PDL file, right?
PDL.
Yeah. What's the file that's creating the description of the diagrams that you want for your patents, the graphics?
DDL, data definition language.
Okay, DDL. Like, you have a collection of probably little snippets of text that you save as your instructions, right? That you don't have to now retype in. They can just go into a set of folders.
Oh yeah,
that can automatically.
I can start a new chat when the chat runs out of gas. Absolutely.
Right. So Ron, think about this for the future. Now, you're a partner in a law firm, so this doesn't strictly apply to you. But let's say you were an associate and you've built this ginormous collection of aids for, let's say, the 7 different programs you like to use, Copilot, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Meta, Perplexity, all the ones that are out there that are kind of the leading contenders.
Yeah.
And you have specific little snippets of instructions that are like your toolkits. What are the odds that that person is not going to take all that stuff with them when they walk out the door? I mean, think about it realistically. When they've built something that probably they weren't specifically hired to do, although you could argue it's a work for hire and it really should be left behind as a tool for the firm. The reality is you're creating like a set of personas that are doing great work with you for your future job and maybe your future marketing and maybe your future timesheet collection and everything else. Now, maybe the firm has a license or a co-ownership right or something because you're using the equipment of the firm. But just think about where we're going with this, because I'm convinced people like you will say, wait a minute, you never really told me that everything I did that had something to do with creating some efficiency for myself somehow becomes property of the firm and I'm barred from using it in the future. I have to start over again. I mean, I think the odds that people are going to agree to that are very, very small. And maybe that means the whole role of an associate is changing. An associate will be more like an independent contractor.
I think technology changes fast enough that maybe it's not a huge issue.
Oh, so you're saying it doesn't matter because the tools will keep evolving and
California view of the world, I think. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I haven't even gotten associates involved. I have a partner who's involved with some of this stuff, but we kind of keep in our own little silos most of the time.
Right, but in theory, that because this thing types so fast, at minimum, people are going to want to eventually become conversant, and it's going to be hard to imagine that a paralegal or an associate that's not conversant is going to be able to keep their job. Because somewhere in this, someone's going to say, really, it took you 12 hours to write that brief?
That day is arriving fast.
That day's over. I mean, I had an associate today that said, this motion that we want to file, it's going to take at least 25 hours. I said, are you kidding me? And I said, are you for real? And he said, yeah. And I literally generated my declaration, his declaration, the motion itself, the detailed structure of it. And there was like 5 or 6 areas for follow-up research, but it was like maybe 2 hours of further work required. And I did all that stuff in about 30 minutes or less.
I'll tell you the other thing is if you write a memo, you're foolish if you don't run it by AI to just debunk it. Or a brief. You're foolish if you run it by AI.
Constructive criticism, right?
Yep.
You say to it, provide constructive criticism. Yeah. And it'll do that all day long. Thanks for coming on, Ron. We should keep this dialogue going because there's some really interesting stuff that's going to evolve out of this, in my opinion.
Absolutely. It was
in many different ways.
Great fun. Glad I could be here.
All right. Take care. Talk to you later.
Bye.
All right.
Tune in next time on The Valley Current.